My name is Raylan Alamo. I'm Acre CO number 374. That's out of St. Paul's table. And I attend Mass here at the Chapel of the Blessed Sacrament in Gibson. Okay, what we're going to do this evening is going to be lesson 2 on Catholic manhood today. And where we left off, just to backtrack for just a second, in lesson 1, I did not make it all the way through chapter 2. We did the short introductory chapter. Then chapter 2 is on strength. And the subtopics we covered under strength are stamina for work, and courage. And so then we're going to pick up now with consistency. Okay, now, so this is still within the chapter on strength. And if we think about it, what consistency does for us, it'll pave the way for the strength that we naturally possess to take effect and have its fullest benefit. So at the top of page 23, I say consistency allows us to be able to perform day in and day out at a maximum level. Consistency is what I believe to be man's core strength and character trait necessary to achieve his desired results. We can even have all the tools and abilities, but without putting them to use, again, the results are going to be poor. Just differentiating us between male and female, you know, a female's nature is more cyclical, not quite as consistent, so we're naturally consistent in our own nature. We ordinarily are the same each and every day throughout life. This allows us to focus our strength and attention on whatever our endeavors may be. To be successful at anything, we have to be consistent with it. The secret of those who are successful in what they do, they do what has to be done even when they don't want to do it. So, and this is so crucial, and it holds true in running a business, leading a family, or in competing as a professional athlete. And I often say this, whatever you're consistent about, whatever you're consistent with, is going to yield whatever results you're going to get, positive or negative. So we consistently do the right things. We consistently go to our prayer life. We can, consistently frequent the sacraments, confession. That's the results we're going to get. We consistently avoid Mass. We consistently miss Mass. We consistently miss our prayers. You can see the results you're going to get. Apply that to anything, to your health, to just about how you handle your money. You consistently waste your money, you're going to have financial problems. And then on here, on the next page 24, I go into an example, a real-life example of my personal hobby of running. And, we compete and do all that stuff, and I like to keep that up steady. But if I'm not training on a regular basis, if I decide to skip some workouts, then whenever I go to compete, it's going to show up, obviously. And that's something we do as a family, just to in a fun way, how is that fun, right? But anyway, as a fun way to just introduce the concept of consistency. I round out chapter 2 with something I just kind of happened upon through my own experience, is the virtue of purity. And why is that in the strength chapter? Because we are required by our faith, by the church, to practice that virtue of purity. By doing so consistently, like I just talked about, it is a bit of a tool or a habit that creates a strength within us. we need to make sure that we approach this from on a spiritual standpoint from the churches, through the church's lens and not through the lens of the world. The world is going to tell you that, purity may be weak, or it may be sissified or something like that. It is not. Purity is not weak. It's not easy. Especially today, it's not easy. Purity is extremely manly. We need to really get that right here and understand it, in viewing females properly and respecting them properly. We need to really hone our concept and get it deep down that it's a manly thing to do, to hang on to our purity. Our Lady of Fatima on page 25 warned children that more souls go to hell over sins of the flesh than for any other sin. This tells me that it takes a great deal of strength to overcome sins and temptations against purity. This is a little bit borrowed concept from St. John Paul II's theology of the body. Somewhere in there, I'm not sure, can't quote you the exact passage. He acknowledges the scientific fact that if we can control our sex drive, we can control any other drive we possess. It is the single strongest drive normal men possess. There's nothing manly about giving in to passions of lust. It's actually the stuff of immoral, immature boys, even though our society will tell you the opposite. It takes a man of tremendous strength to hold himself in check as he lives his life in this licentious culture of today. And like I say, I draw from a bunch of different sources because I study various things, various disciplines. From the sector of business, at least 100 years ago, maybe more, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Right, so he analyzes and interviews some of the most successful, financially successful men in the world, and he finds out what's common among them. What are the common traits they possess? And there's a bunch of them. One of them happens to be that they all had tremendously strong sex drives. And what they did was control that and channel it into something creative and productive. They use that drive and just redirect it. So that's a tip. That's called a hint. So that's what we can train ourselves to reject the temptations of lust. It is necessary to do so as Christ sees lust as one and the same as adultery. And that's in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, verse 28. And we should start by avoiding the near occasions of sin. Some places we can't avoid, like whatever our workplace may be. Sometimes you got to go out in the market. For those, we have to maintain the discipline and work up the discipline of redirecting our vision. We're very visual. Men are visual. So turning of the eyes is a strong virtue and discipline to develop a habit. I'm going to cover habits in the next chapter, but that's a preview. Form the habit. But there are places that we don't have to go. That we know would be a near occasion of sin. It's a Catholic concept. We need to know and stay away. We know certain restaurants, the servers are going to dress in a certain way. There's plenty of other restaurants to go to. Don't go to those. Just be upright about it and say, I'm not going to give in to that. I'm not going to see those females used in that way. Beaches. Can't do it. Nope. It's just not a place for a man to be knowing what is out there. Purity is an area of strength that is so often undeveloped in men today because they're not required to. The society, the government, all the programs are going to try to disable men by not bringing them up to the level of making them or causing them to exercise purity. We're led to believe there's no consequences, but in Humani Vitae, Pope Paul VI did say that the contraceptive pill would lead to infidelity in marriage. And the problem is that it causes the most damage and pain to women and children. You know, the men pretty much get off scot-free, relatively speaking. Okay, so that's chapter 2. Just a second. I think I'll be able to get through chapter 3 here. And so chapter 3 is on training. Training is the repetition of productive activities toward forming good habits to produce positive results. So we just talked about consistency, you know, and building on that consistency, very closely related. Consistency, we have training. Training will build the discipline required to be consistent. Again, another program I picked some information up from was called the Power Habit System. It's a Nightingale Conant production by Noah St. John. So a lot of this stuff with regard to brain science that he discovered is where I'm getting at. So who hasn't heard the term, we are creatures of habit, right? So we just go off, we pretty much live by our habits. This is because we move, once we have the really grasp the truth in that statement, we can start to develop some consistency within ourselves that can yield magnificent results. This is because we can move actions from the conscious to the subconscious level. Think about if you had to learn how to drive a standard shift automobile. You know, whenever you first had to do that, you were concentrating and put it in gear and let off the clutch and, you know, hit the accelerator and having to try to coordinate yourself and jumping all over the place. And after a few days of that, then you're pretty much doing it with your eyes closed. That's what happens, moves it to the subconscious level. Important rule of thumb, we should all know, is that it takes roughly 21 days to form a habit. That's why I say, you know, be Catholic, apply this. During Lent, you could probably knock down 2 of your major faults over the course of a Lent. And this is what happens with people. You know, you see January 1st rolls around, you get the fad diets and all that. You know, people say, I'm going to lose weight, this, that, or whatever. Stop smoking, whatever the thing may be that they're going to change. And then they're all pumped about it, and I'm going to do it, you know, and they get through that first week, and they still all pumped, and then work into that second week, things really start getting tough. Come into the second week, you know, this, that, or whatever happened. You know, broken refrigerator or dishwasher or whatever, you know, life happens. And they just, by third week, just start giving up. If they would have just gone through the finish line and got that second win after day 21, you know, it just would get a lot easier. The problem with habits is that, I'm at the bottom of page 30. The problem with habits is that the mind does not know if a habit is something good for us or not. It sends a message to the body to act on an impulse. We as humans possess the power to command our subconscious and to program it into doing what is right and what is good for us by developing good habits. We simply cannot stop doing bad things that have become habitual. We need to replace it with the bad habits, the bad habit with a good habit. That's why if you look at the cardinal sins, there's an opposite virtue for each one of them. Okay, so replace the bad habit with a good habit. Once you surpass the 21-day point, things become much easier. In the area we've been working on, and this also works from a spiritual standpoint, and sins we're trying to overcome. Then I go into the whole concept of developing a rule of life. And the religious do this, obviously, some of them. If you're in an order, they're going to have a rule. St. Benedict's rule is pretty popular and well known. It's very helpful on page 31 to develop a rule of life. If there's one thing I remember from my first spiritual director early on in married life, some 18, I guess would be 20 years ago now, is that we, as family men, and those seeking to be family men, must practice moderation in all things, including religion. Okay, and this is what I've encountered with so many men over the years, is that they, in their 20s and 30s, may have neglected their spiritual life, and then 40s and 50s be awakened to that, and what happens? They go overkill. And so their families think they're fanatical. Okay, so moderation in all things. You know, we need to still realize we're family men and make sure that we're covering all the bases. And this is my true life example of something to do with moderation. Okay, so as a kid, loved sports. So like always, you know, TV, sports. I didn't like the Saints. The Saints were bad when I was a kid. It was the Steelers, but it was, you know, all sports all the time. There you go. But then come college days, really didn't have time for it. You know, so it just kind of went by the wayside. Then once I got into work life, the people I associated with were all into it because, you know, because it was so quasi-governmental. You know, the Saints would take so much of our money, so we at least had to give them some credence and all. But I found there, you know, I had at that time one child, maybe 3 years old, and you know, he wasn't too interested in sitting in front of a football game. So then I had to, you know, leave that alone too and go do something with him. And then now, getting more back into it because it's more of a family thing. So you can see how you got to moderate things and go by state in life and what the demands of the state in life are. We can make an inventory of how we spend our spare time. A good rule of life incorporates activities for financial stability, health, spirituality, good relationships, and service to church and community. And what we're going to find is that when we have that free time to do whatever it is we want to do, we're going to tend toward doing what's easy. You know, there may be some demands there, and so we have to go toward doing the more difficult thing first. Get that out of the way, that phone call you don't want to make, that person you don't want to talk to, that chore that you really just dislike. Because Brian Tracy has a book out there, Eat That Frog. You know, the worst thing you got to do all day is eat a frog, might as well get it over with. You know, so go get it done. Rounding out the training chapter is routine and schedule. So you can see rule can work right into, as you define your rule, then you can work it into a schedule, a routine. Now, routine is a word that's really got a bad rap. It's actually a very powerful tool. It works hand in hand with habits. My family has a routine for days, weeks, months, and years. And routine can be worked into a schedule to get that momentum going for regular repetitions of highly effective tasks. For instance, we're all Catholic, right? So church discipline requires that we go to Mass on Sunday. And so we know that Mass starts at a certain time. So that means we're going to show up on time for Mass. So hopefully we'll show up on time for Mass. That's part of scheduling. See that? See how that works? So you and there's that analogy that I use of that professor that did the demonstration with the big rocks in a jar. Okay, so and he had put some big rocks in, and then he put some sand and things like that and water, and the jar was full. But then if he had put all that other stuff in there first, there's no way he would have got as many big rocks in. So we need to define the big rocks, what are our priorities, and then plug them into our schedule to make sure we hit them all. I'll put in here as an example of how we cover our daily rosary, depending on what's going on or what day of the week. So that's kind of a little routine we go through. And I'll pick on health. One of the big rocks that is often neglected is our health. It has promoted, again talking about staying in shape, it has promoted the release of stress, clear thinking, proper body weight, and all the health benefits that go along with these conditions. And I was at 45, I'm at 47 now. I feel I'm very strong, have no pain or restrictions at all, sleep well at night, and I'm at the top of my game in profession with clear, sharp, and quick thinking. And the reason I keep on about health, younger guys, it's not a big deal, but it's easy to let go. It usually happens when you get married for some reason, I don't know why. But it's really easy to let go. And it has a domino effect. St. Paul had said, as Jim Rohn says, you treat the body like a temple, not a wood shed. Okay, so what happens if we're sickly, or we're at the doctor, or we're home in bed sick? Some things we can't control, but some things we can. Then there's a lot of stuff we're missing out on doing. There's a lot of work for God that we could be doing. There's a lot of productive things we could do financially for our family. The people that we are committed to work for, we might be missing work days, if we haven't taken care of ourselves. Or if we are there, but you're not there, If y'all have employees, y'all might, some of these guys in here might know about that, having people that are there that are not there. And it's all often related to health. So our big rocks for a Catholic family would be personal finances, spending time with the family, especially our wives, and necessary recreation to recharge the batteries. God bless.